Hi, this is Heart of Gold. I am Paul Chartier. We're joined by two gentlemen tonight from Lighthouse Ministries, my friend Greg Horn and Dr. Rick Reams. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, Paul.
I've heard of Lighthouse Ministries, Greg. I'm sure some people in town have not. So give them a general overview of who you are and what you do.
Sure. It's a great question. I've volunteered with the Lighthouse for 8 years. I've been on staff about a year, and we are located, if you're going into Main Street, as soon as you pass the Dunkin' Donuts, a lot of people know there, at the first light, you take a right there, and that's Elm Tree Lane, and we're located up on the corner there, the second light, and we actually just celebrated our 10th anniversary. So we started out just trying to help men that were struggling with drug and alcohol addictions, and then we saw a tremendous need for people that were just going hungry. On top of the men's recovery program, we started serving meals, and we were just doing that on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then as time went on, after about the 5th year, we started doing that Monday through Saturday. And last year, amazingly, we served over 40,000 meals.
Wow, that's just absolutely amazing. The program you have, is it an overnight program? Is it daytime only? How does it work?
Yeah, it's a great question. The men's recovery program, we can house up to 12 men, and they do stay there 24/7. Part of the great thing to help pay for, because we don't charge men to be in the program there, they help serve the meals, prepare the meals, they get certified, and so they're there all the time. We do serve lunches at noon and 1. We can only get 58 people in our dining area, and occasionally we have to do a 2 o'clock service too. So.
You know, Lexington, and you guys may have been around, we don't have the extremes here that I find. We don't have the crazy things happening on either end. We have things happening, but not to the extreme. And we have people homeless, hanging out downtown. We see them, they're not overly violent, you know, they don't accost people. They're pretty tame, but they need to go someplace. And they probably, some of them end up with you.
Yeah, we try to be a safe place. We partner with another organization I believe you've had on your show before called the Day Center. And what they usually do, go there at 9 o'clock, and they have some classes and coffee and donuts, and then they come to us to eat. And we have a spiritual devotion, also some life skill application things that we share with them. And then they're there for an hour. Then we also meet needs such as shoes, clothes, just some basic hygiene items that they might need. And also do some counseling. So we are kind of a middle of the day break for those people to give them some encouragement and hope. Nothing more exciting when somebody comes and tells us, hey, I got a job, and just to see the excitement, or I got a place to live. And just some of the things that I probably take for granted is a great reminder just how fortunate a lot of us are.
I am so glad that this program exists to help organizations like you tell people the great things that you do here in Lexington. Rick, you've been with Lighthouse volunteering for how long?
A little over a year now.
And of all the organizations in Lexington, how did you find Lighthouse?
I would say actually Lighthouse kind of found me. I go to Vineyard Community Church, and we had what we call an Eastland Day of Service last year, and I wasn't able to be there. My wife and I were busy, and we went to church that night, and I told one of our pastors at that time, Micah Oder, I said, if we can ever help in another way, we would love to help. And so he said, well, as a matter of fact, tomorrow night we're going to the Lighthouse to serve dinner. And I said, well, I think we can do that, thinking what we were going to do was to go to dinner and serve 12 men sitting around a table, and we'd go in, serve the food, how are you doing?
I would have thought the same thing.
And clean up and leave. Well, when we got there, we found out it was totally different. When we got there, not only did I not expect the men to be working, I really didn't expect them to be cooking, but that's what they were doing. They were cooking. They had us cutting up pies for dessert, pies that were donated. We've cut fruit up that's been donated. We get everything ready. We wrap utensils, plastic forks and knives. We do whatever needs to be done. And then I think my favorite time on Sunday nights, we serve dinner about 5 o'clock. We open doors at 5. We get there about 3:30. So usually right around 4:30 or so, we're done with everything. And then the guys come out and sit around, and it's time to start talking to them. And I've met some amazing people in there. And you know, the saying, there but by the grace of God go I.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys have just had a wrong turn.
Yep.
You know, they've gotten to that fork and they've taken the wrong one. And so that night, Micah I didn't know you get up and give a devotional, and Micah got up and gave a devotional, and I said, well, Micah, I'd be happy to pray at the end. And he said, well, you know, there's a lot of people here. Are you sure? I said, well, I would love to have the honor of praying. So I prayed that night, and Micah came to me right after we were done, because we serve the meals, and then we clean up, and then we bring out desserts, and we clean up, and then they leave, and if there's another crew waiting, we bring them in, and we do the same thing. So when it was done, Micah he said, hey, Rick, next month is my birthday when Lighthouse meets. Would you be available to speak that night? And I said, well, Micah, I would love to. That would be an honor to me. And so what kept on going through my head during all this time and all the time I volunteered is in the Bible where it says a couple things. It said, do unto others as you would have done unto you. People ask me all the time, you know, why do you do this? And I said, well, you know what, if it was me, if it was my parents because there's older people, if it was my children because there's younger people. I had a kid I coached in basketball, in a church league basketball, walk into Lighthouse one night. And I just said...
That had to be a shock.
It did.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, all of us church people,
right.
And he had gotten kicked out of his house. And so that's what... But the other verse that kept on coming to me is just love your neighbor as yourself. And you know, I think sometimes we have too small of a circle that we consider neighbors. We consider our neighbors next door, down the street. But you know, I've come to find these people at Lighthouse are my neighbors.
Yeah.
Because we can sit and talk. I get an opportunity to speak with them. There's a lady there that comes in a wheelchair that has one leg that she has the sweetest spirit of anyone I've ever met.
Yeah.
She, like you were talking to earlier about, she has a smile on her face. And you know, I keep on thinking to myself when I'm talking to her, and she is lifting me up more than I can ever lift her up. And I'm thinking I would be there with a terrible attitude saying, why did this happen to me? And she's sitting there with a smile on her face, and you know what? It lifts me up every time.
To a person, whoever sits here and volunteers, the volunteer gets more out of it than the people that serve.
Absolutely.
It's inspiring to help people like this.
Absolutely.
Lighthouse is not United Way. It's not, you know, Boy Scouts. It doesn't have that name recognition.
Right.
You have to go out and really tell the entire story to a lot of people.
Right.
To be able to build that bond, build that relationship, and say, and we need your help.
Right.
We talked before about some big project you have going on. What's the project and how are you solving that?
Well, Paul, when we started 10 years ago, we were just in a 4,300 square foot building, and Tay Henderson, her husband Dan, started it, and unfortunately, during the first year, he had to have a liver transplant, and he died on the operating table. And so Tay, through just tremendous faith, has carried on their dream to keep this ministry going. And last year we were able to purchase a building right behind ours, and it'll triple our space. We go from 4,300 to over 12,000. And so we've raised enough to we're at the point now where we can't go any further till we get our heating and air system, our HVAC system. And so we need about $55,000 to be able to get that installed. And as you know, it's been very hot this week. And so, gosh, we really would love to be able to get in there, because right now we're having to do 12, 1 o'clock, and 2 p.m. Sometimes lunches, as I shared earlier. And it's just a really tough thing to close the door on somebody when we get to number 58.
And you said maybe the fundraising campaign is you're going to ask 999 people to donate $55.
That's exactly right, because Paul's going to be our 1,000th. So we did a drive.
Actually, yes.
998.
That's right. There you go. There you go. Yes, sir. You know, we know it's a tough economic season for people, and when I hear the number of 55,000, that's a little overwhelming to me. But if we get 1,000 people to give $55,
very doable.
Right, and you know, so we just kicked that off a couple weeks ago, and happy to say, you know, we've already got over 2,000, and I really hope that people, maybe as they're watching this, will just be touched to make a difference, make a donation.
Let's give your website, and for people watching, they can call, they can go to the website.
Absolutely.
You need 998 people.
That's right.
To give $55.
That's correct.
And then you have a brand new HVAC system.
That's right, and we can serve 190 people at one time and bring them out of the frigid winter like we had this past year, or the heat.
So go to the lighthouseministries.org
That's correct.
and
That's correct.
or call the phone number 259-3434.
That's correct.
And do you take credit cards?
We do. We do. You can go when you go onto the website, the donate button's on the far right of the homepage. You can't miss it. And so just really would appreciate it. And there's a place you can mark, what your donation's for, and you can just say drive for 55 or heat and AC, and we'll make sure that it goes to that specific fund.
You mentioned stuff, shoes, items. Do people don't make donations to you? Do you buy, how does that work?
Right. One of the things that we saw, what we do every time we start a new area of ministry is when we see a need. And we saw that there were a lot of people that some of them have jobs, but just their shoes were getting worn out. And so we started a thing called Michael's Feet, because we saw a young man that his feet, the blood were coming out the ends of both of his shoes, because he was wearing a size 9 shoe and he had a size 12 foot. So we can get anybody, most people have a pair of slightly used tennis shoes or casual shoes. Unfortunately, we don't need dress shoes, but any type of tennis shoe or casual shoe that is slightly used, man, these people, those are treasures to them.
Greg Horn, Rick Reams, for people to volunteer, you sound just on fire when you talk about your time at Lighthouse.
Right. Absolutely.
Why should people volunteer?
Again, I think if you look around Lexington, as you said, we have the homeless, we have the marginalized, and it's easy to stay in our own little box, our own little corner. But I would challenge people to step out of that box, to come and see what Lighthouse does. Just come and see. It's not a scary place. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do.
How many hours, how many days a week, and how many hours a week do you volunteer?
I only volunteer the last Sunday night of each month, because that's when our church is assigned to that. But the greatest thing is, and I don't think we've mentioned this, these guys actually graduate out of this program, okay? And when they graduate, they go out in the community, okay? The neatest thing to me is to see, first of all, how these guys who have had tough times, how they share with the people they're serving. And also to see the love that they will accept from you, because a lot of these people, not just the guys that are living there, the people we're serving have never been loved. We had a guy graduate that called my wife and I a couple months ago and wanted to take us out to dinner because he had a job. And when we sat down, and this is not to build us up, this is glory to God.
Absolutely.
He sat down and he said, Rick and Stephanie, I want to tell you one thing. You're the first people that ever loved me. And because of that, I'm eternally grateful. That's not us. That's God. That's the eternal gratification.
And because you asked the question, what can we do? This is what happens.
Exactly.
And I would ask anybody out there, if this is moving to you, it's fantastic. You can make a difference. You don't need to donate thousands of dollars. You can give a couple hours, one night a week, maybe, or whatever. But let's put the phone number again up in the website, and we want people to call. Greg Horn, you guys do a great job. Rick, thanks so much for inspiring us by telling these stories.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Lighthouse Ministries, use this, make it go.
Thank you, Paul.
Great, thanks.
God
I'm Paul
bless.
Chartier. We'll be right back on Heart of Gold.